It was about focusing on the stuff I could control and ignore what I couldn't. It was about testing the status quo and about working as a team. Because in my experience, when I was able to put all these things together, what I learned is that the sky is not the limit. Cliche, I know, but absolutely true in my case. Now, unlike probably these 4 Gaganauts out here, I was not a good student growing up. You know, I was a kid that sat in the back of the room, looking out the window, looking at the clock, trying to make it go faster, and being an astronaut was not something I ever thought I would be able to do. And for me, it involved some inspiration that I found in a book, Tom Wolfe's The Right Stuff, that inspired me to eventually fly in space. And like I said, I applied to be an astronaut in 1996, and I flew my first flight, space flight, in 1999. And I can remember looking out the window, my first 20 minutes in space, and I saw something on the horizon. I didn't even recognize what it was. And I said to one of my crewmates, I said, "What is that? That thin film on the surface?" And he said, "That's our atmosphere." And I saw how incredibly delicate and fragile the surface of our planet is, almost like a contact lens over somebody's eye that protects every living thing we know here on Earth. And that film is a lot thinner than you think. You know, from orbit, you don't see politics. You don't see religions. You don't see political borders, with few exceptions. I mean, you see the Indian-Pakistan border at night, and you can see the DMZ, and that's about it. For the daytime, during the daytime, it looks like we are all part of one big planet Earth. And that perspective, it changes you, but also connects you to something very old. You know, in Indian philosophy, there's this phrase, and I'm going to probably butcher it, but Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And it's a word, thank you. I'm sure I butchered it anyway. But it basically means that the world, our planet, is one family. And from orbit, you know, that's not really a philosophy. It's really just geography. Because the Earth doesn't look like one place. And that's one of the reasons why human spaceflight matters so much. Because it's not just about technology or national prestige, which is very important. It's about expanding our perspective as a species. You know, long before rockets and satellites existed, you know, Indian scholars, they were already studying the cosmos. Astronomers like, again, I'm going to butcher it, Aryabhata, more than 1,500 years ago. You know, he was calculating planetary motion and describing the rotation of the Earth, which means that India was doing orbital mechanics about 1,400 years before NASA even existed. You know, right now, we're living in a really remarkable moment in the history of space exploration. You know, more countries are going into space more than ever before. More people are becoming astronauts. We have a few right here in the room today, and I'm very proud to be able to share the stage with them later. And more nations are continuing to commit to humanity beyond Earth in low Earth orbit. And India is a great example of that. You know, over the last decade, ISRO has achieved some incredible milestones, launching hundreds of satellites, sending the Chandrayaan missions to the moon, and landing near the lunar South Pole, which is something has never been done before by anyone. And now India is preparing for its first space missions. Gaganauts will fly that mission here in a few years, which is a huge step, not just for India, but for all of us. Because every time a new country, a new nation launches humans into space, it expands the community of explorers working together to push the boundaries of what is possible. The International Space Station, where I spent 340 days, is probably the best example of that cooperation. I launched for a mission about 11 years ago and landed 10 years ago from the International Space Station. And more than 20 years, the past 20 years, we have had astronauts from very different countries, including our partners from Europe, Japan, all around the world. Teleprompter guy, get you every time. But we have astronauts from Canada, Japan, Europe that have been living and working together in orbit, conducting research and learning how humans can survive and thrive in space. We learned how to live off the Earth for long periods of time. We learned how to live, to work together in extreme environments. And we learned the challenge of exploration are easier when we solve them together. Now, these lessons will matter more in the future because the next chapter of human exploration is already beginning. Humans are going back to the moon. The Artemis crew are launching here, hopefully in early April. The first few days we have a launch opportunity. There are 4 crew members from 2 different countries, United States and Canada, that are going to fly a rocket around the moon and go further and faster than anyone has ever gone before. Just the other day I was talking to, actually yesterday, Reed Wiseman, the commander of the crew, and he said they are ready to go. So when I was leaving the space station for the last time, and this is a place, keep in mind, that I've spent over 500 days of my life on, but I was leaving the space station for the very last time, and I'm looking out at the part you could see out the window. I'm sitting in a Russian Soyuz, and I'm thinking, we built this International Space Station while flying around the Earth at 17,500 miles an hour in a vacuum in extremes of temperatures, plus or minus 270 degrees, built by an international partnership of 15 different countries, different languages, different cultures, different technical ways of doing things, that this is the hardest thing we've ever done, harder to going to the moon, and if we can do that, we can go do anything. Eventually we're going to go to Mars. And when that happens, it's not just going to be one nation. It's not going to be one culture. It's not going to be one religion, one country. It'll be an achievement of all humanity with countries like India, with incredible engineering talent, a growing space program, and a long tradition of scientific curiosity will play an important role in the future. Exploration has always been one of the things that moves civilizations forward. Thousands of years ago, people crossed the oceans in wooden ships. Today, we cross space in rockets. The distance has changed, but the spirit is exactly the same. It's a human instinct to look at the horizon or look up at the sky and wonder what is out there, and then build the tools to allow us to get there. Someday when humans set foot on Mars, the people who make that mission possible, like I said, are not going to come from one country, one place. They'll come from everywhere, and I'm willing to bet some of them will come from India. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks indeed for that very inspiring and, of course, invigorating address, Captain Kelly, of course. But we are keeping with this theme of Next in Space. And now